Midnight News coming to you live from Algiers. I'm your host, Mariam Zian, and here are your top stories. 79 people tragically lost their lives in the past 24 hours as a result of 6 new massacres committed by the Zionist occupation against families in the Gaza Strip. Next, UNRWA Chief Philippe Lazzarini called on the UN Security Council to investigate the killing of hundreds of its employees and the destruction of buildings that occurred while they were on duty in Gaza. Also coming up tonight, Algeria, Tunisia and Libya sign an agreement to establish a consultative mechanism for groundwater in the northern Sahara of the three countries. Welcome back to your program. At the outset, the Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza announced that the Zionist occupation committed 6 new massacres against families, resulting in 79 martyrs and 86 injured being brought to hospitals during the past 24 hours. In a statement issued on Wednesday, the Ministry of Health revealed that the death toll of the ongoing Zionist aggression against the Gaza Strip had risen to 34,262, in addition to 77,229 injured, pointing out that a number of victims are still under the rubble and on the roads, and the occupation prevents ambulance and civil defense crews from reaching them. The Euro-Mediterranean Human Rights Monitor warned that the occupation army would commit a new massacre in Beit Lahia in the northern Gaza Strip and would wipe out the last remaining inhabitants of the city. The Euromed also warned that the Zionist occupation would implement a new forced displacement process. The human rights organization said the occupation army begun launching intense air and artillery attacks on the town of Beit Lahia before issuing evacuation orders to the population estimated at approximately 50,000 citizens. The European Union called for an independent investigation into mass graves in the Shifa and Nasser medical hospitals in Gaza, which were destroyed by the Israeli occupation army. Here's EU spokesperson Peter Stano.
Well, of course, we are gravely concerned by the reported discovery of mass graves in Khan Yunis and in Al-Shifa hospital. This is something that forces us to call for an independent investigation of all the suspicions and all the circumstances, because indeed it creates the impression that there might have been violations of international human rights committed. That's why it's important to have independent investigation and to ensure the accountability.
Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza has warned of the spread of many diseases and epidemics as a result of the overflow of sewage in the streets and between the tents of displaced people, as well as the lack of adequate drinking water. The Ministry of Health said in a statement that these bad conditions usher in a health catastrophe, especially among children, noting that many cases of meningitis and epidemic liver disease have been recorded among citizens, urging on the occasion all relevant international and humanitarian institutions to urgently intervene. The World Food Programme warned that the risk of an imminent famine hitting the Gaza Strip is increasing day by day, noting the health of the Strip's population already suffers from hunger. World Food Programme Director General Giancarlo Chiri said that there is reasonable evidence that the three determinants of famine, namely food insecurity, malnutrition and mortality, will be achieved within the next 6 weeks, adding that the only way to avoid famine is to ensure the immediate entry of aid.
In Gaza is extremely worrying. We all know that we are getting closer by the day to a famine situation. Malnutrition among children is spreading. Okay, we estimate 30% of children below age of 2 is now acutely malnourished or wasted. And 70% of the population in the north is facing catastrophic hunger. There is reasonable evidence that all three famine thresholds, food insecurity, malnutrition, and mortality, will be passed in the next 6 weeks.
The Commissioner General of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, called on the UN Security Council to investigate what he described as blatant disregard for UN operations in Gaza after the killing of hundreds of its employees and the destruction of its buildings. Lazzarini said in a press conference held at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva that 160 of the agency's headquarters in the Gaza Strip were completely destroyed, stressing that the main motive behind the attack on UNRWA is to strip the Palestinians of their refugee status.
I also called on the member of the Security Council for an independent investigation and accountability for the blatant disregard of UN premises, UN staff, and UN operation also in the Gaza Strip, reminding that as of today it's 180 UNRWA staff have been killed. Last week it was 178. We had more than 160 premises which have been damaged or completely destroyed, with 400 people at least having been killed while they were seeking the protection of the UN flag.
Iran and Pakistan issued a joint statement at the culmination of the visit of the President of Iran, Ibrahim Raisi, to Islamabad, calling on the UN Security Council to take action against Israel, saying it had illegally targeted neighboring countries and foreign diplomatic facilities. The Al-Qassam Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic resistance movement Hamas, published a video clip of an Israeli detainee denouncing the positions of occupation Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu regarding the prisoner file and demanding his release, as you can see in the following footage.
אני הבן של יונתן ורייצ'ל. נולדתי ב3/10 שנת 2000 בקליפורניה שבארצות הברית, והיום אני מתגורר עם משפחתי בירושלים. נחטפתי ב7 לאוקטובר, במסיבה בחניון רעים. יצאתי לבלות עם החברים שלי, ובמקום מצאתי את עצמי נלחם על חיי, עם פציעות קשות בכל הגוף, אחרי שניסיתי להגן בגופי על עצמי ועל עוד אזרחים מפוחדים. כי לא היה מי שיגן עלינו באותו היום. בנימין נתניהו וממשלת ישראל, אתם צריכים להתבייש בעצמכם. בנימין נתניהו וממשלת ישראל, אתם צריכים להתבייש בעצמכם. אתם צריכים להתבייש שהפקרתם אותי ועוד אלפי אזרחים באותו יום ארור. אתם צריכים להתבייש שכמעט 200 יום אנחנו נמצאים פה וכל ניסיונות החילוץ של צה"ל כשלו. אתם צריכים להתבייש שהפצצות חיל האוויר הרגו כמעט 70 חטופים כמוני. ואתם צריכים להתבייש ששוב ושוב כל עסקה שעולה על השולחן, אתה והממשלה שלך שוללים. אתם לא רוצים לסיים את הסיוט הזה כבר?
The Al-Quds Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, for its part, published scenes of missile bursts that it said bombed the settlements of Sedrat and Nir'am. Let's take a look.
وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير. ضمن عمليات معركة طوفان الأقصى اليوم نقوم في سرايا القدس القوة الصاروخية تجهيز الرشقات الصاروخية لإطلاقها على مستوطنات غلاف غزة. رسالة إلى الحاج القائد الصلب العظيم زياد النخال أبا طارق والحاج أكرم العجول أبا محمد الذين لم تكسرهم كل المؤامرات، نقول لكم إن رجالكم في الميدان بخير وأننا أصحاب النفس الطويل.
Jamaica announced Wednesday its recognition of the State of Palestine, bringing the number of countries that recognize the State of Palestine to 142 countries. Jamaica's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Kamina Johnson-Smith, said Jamaica continues to advocate for a two-state solution as the only viable option to resolve the long-standing conflict and uphold the dignity and rights of Palestinians. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune met with the Palestinian ambassador to Algeria, Fayez Abou Aita, on Wednesday, as per a statement from the Algerian presidency. Following the meeting, the Palestinian ambassador commended Algeria's efforts in the UN Security Council, particularly its support for Palestine's quest for full membership in the United Nations, emphasizing Algeria's unwavering commitment to this goal.
تشرفت اليوم.
Today, I had the privilege of meeting the President Abdelmajid Tebboune, expressing heartfelt thanks to Algeria for its pivotal role at the Security Council. Despite the American veto, 12 countries supported Palestine's full UN membership. I firmly believe Palestine will achieve recognition. Thanks to Algeria's unwavering support, our ongoing coordination is crucial, and I commend Algeria's diplomatic efforts in placing the Palestinian issue in its rightful context.
Still within the Palestinian file and Palestinian news, the permanent representative of Algeria to the UN, Ammar Ben Jama, emphasized during a Security Council session on the situation in the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, that the catastrophic situation prevailing in Gaza is human-made and should be stopped by the influence of the international community. Let's take a listen.
This is not a natural disaster. It is a human-made disaster, and we bear the responsibility. The international community must ensure implementation of ICJ orders and Security Council resolutions. Failure is not an option. The occupying power that causes death and desperation wherever it goes cannot continue to dictate the rules. This catastrophe must be ended.
In other developments, Yemen's Houthi forces announced on Wednesday that they carried out attacks targeting the Maersk Yorktown ship, an American warship destroyer in the Gulf of Aden, and the Israeli vessel MSC Veracruz in the Indian Ocean. The group's military spokesman Yahya Sari' made the announcement in a televised speech. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune led a ceremony on Wednesday to accept the credentials of 4 new ambassadors, as per a statement from the Algerian presidency. Among them are Ali El-Jassim, Ahmed Al-Aradi, representing the Kingdom of Bahrain, actor Igarza Carbera, representing the Republic of Cuba, Harshia Poladian, representing the Republic of Armenia, and Pomo Frank Sophonia, representing the Kingdom of Lesotho. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, conducted a partial reshuffle of governors on Wednesday, as indicated in a press release by the Presidency of the Republic. The governor of Ouargla has been transferred to Bourj Baji Mokhtar, Ain Difla governor to province of Ouargla, Ould Jellal governor to Ain Difla, Bourj Baji Mokhtar governor to Ould Jellal province. Algerian Foreign Minister Mr. Ahmed Attaf and Speaker of the Canadian House of Commons Greg Fergus reviewed the friendly and cooperative relations that unite the two countries and discussed ways to promote them to broader horizons, especially by activating and revitalizing the various mechanisms provided by parliamentary diplomacy. A statement from the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the two parties exchanged visions and analyses regarding developments in the political, security, and economic situations in the Sahel-Saharan region, discussed the possibility of implementing joint projects according to the formula of tripartite cooperation to serve sustainable development goals. A joint ministerial meeting was held in Algiers to sign an agreement regarding the establishment of a consultation mechanism on groundwater for Northern Sahara, which includes Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. The final statement emphasized the importance of preserving water resources as a vital strategic resource for the three countries as well as the entire region. It also stressed on the urgent need to enhance cooperation and coordination in the field of water resources in a sustainable manner, taking into account each country's sovereignty over its groundwater.
إن اجتماعنا اليوم يأتي يومين فقط.
Our meeting today comes only 2 days after the tripartite summit of the leaders of our countries was held in Tunisia, which expressed a firm political will to establish tripartite cooperation to advance the economies of the three countries and to confront the challenges that are imposed by the delicate phase that our region is going through. Our meeting today falls within this movement and dedicates this political will to the revival of tripartite cooperation, and the mechanism that we are about to establish may be a good opening for other areas of cooperation and coordination between our countries, especially in light of the many available opportunities and capabilities.
Algeria and Qatar are working closely together to make their economies stronger. Leaders from both countries are determined to improve their relationship, which is creating more investment opportunities and boosting economic growth for both nations. Marwa Bdaiwar has more details.
Algeria-Qatar relations have witnessed unprecedented development in recent years, driven by the determination of the leaders of both countries to raise them to higher levels. The two nations seek to give a qualitative leap for economic and trade cooperation by signing several partnership agreements in various fields. Most recently, the signing on Wednesday of a $3.5 billion worth deal for the launch of a mega farm project between the Algerian government and the prominent Qatari dairy production company Bkhdmة to produce milk powder in Algeria.
The implementation of this project, whose value exceeds $3.5 billion, will permit to provide 50% of Algerian national requirements from locally produced milk powder, in addition to supplying red meat to the local market, creating 5,000 direct jobs, and contributing to the growth of the national cattle herd population.
The agreement entails the establishment of a modern mega farm in Adrar, southeastern Algeria, stretching over an area of no less than 100,000 hectares. This farm is said to have a production capacity of over 200,000 tons of milk powder annually.
The vision of this strategic partnership between Bkhedmة company and the National Investment Fund in Algeria is based on building and developing an integrated local system for the dairy industry to produce approximately 194,000 tons of powdered milk annually.
Once operational, the future mega farm in Adrar is expected to strengthen Algeria's food sovereignty and ensure self-sufficiency in this essential product, particularly leveraging the renewed expertise of the Qatari giant Bkhedmة in dairy production and farming. This strategic move by Algeria not only underscores its commitment to expansion and diversification, but also reflects a broader trend of regional agricultural investment and cooperation, particularly in the pursuit of food security and self-sufficiency goals.
To Russia, the Russian Foreign Ministry criticized NATO's upcoming maneuver scheduled to start on April 26 near Finland's border with Russia, denouncing them as provocative. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stated on Wednesday that such maneuvers are intended to exert military pressure on Russia and increase the risk of potential military incidents. U.S. President Joe Biden has formally approved the decision to provide financial and military aid to Ukraine amounting to $61 billion, following congressional endorsement. This move signals an escalation in the conflict in Ukraine, coinciding with Western efforts to bolster support for Kiev. Hossein Berkan.
With swift action from Congress to the White House in just under a week, the Biden administration has approved a substantial aid package for Ukraine, surpassing expectations at $61 billion.
I just signed into law the national security package that was passed by the House of Representatives this weekend and by the Senate yesterday. It's going to make America safer, it's going to make the world safer, and it continues America's leadership in the world, and everyone knows it. It gives vital support to America's partners, and so they can defend themselves against threats to their sovereignty and to the lives and freedom of their citizens.
Regardless of party lines, Washington's policy is unequivocal in defending perceived threats to its interests, as Biden underscores the imperative of supporting European allies, spearheaded by Kiev. The new legislation streamlines the transfer of U.S. military supplies to Ukraine, with deliveries expected within days.
In the next few hours, literally the few hours, we're going to begin sending in equipment to Ukraine for air defense munitions, for artillery, for rocket systems, and armored vehicles. You know, this package is literally an investment, not only in Ukraine's security, but in Europe's security, in our own security.
While Moscow downplays Western support for Ukraine, viewing it as pretext for expanding Kyiv military capabilities, especially with potential acquisition of long-range missiles. Against the backdrop of ongoing conflict in Ukraine, NATO conducts maneuvers in Lithuania involving nearly 18,000 troops from 9 countries, including Poland. These exercises are viewed by Russia as provocative and part of the hybrid war against it. Amid mounting concerns of conflict escalation, Russia reiterates warnings of resorting to nuclear deterrence in response to perceived high-level threats from NATO.
We wrap up our news edition with some cultural news. The 4th edition of the Annaba Mediterranean Film Festival began on Wednesday evening in Annaba, eastern Algeria. The festival is showcasing 70 films from 18 Mediterranean countries and is being held in the Izzeddin Majoubi Theatre until April 30th. Italian cinema will be the guest of honor with a special program dedicated to Palestinian cinema, coinciding with the ongoing Zionist aggression against the Palestinian people.
pleasure to be here, really, in Algeria. But it's not my first time. I came before, one more time, in Alger, in the city of Alger, before pandemics, to give a master class. And I stayed about 10 days. It was a nice experience. And it's really a pleasure to be here again.
That's it for tonight's program. Thank you very much for tuning in and have a good night.